Welcome to the TEK2day Podcast, powered by CEO Rater. It's your host, John Mayetta. Today we have a special episode. We had two guests on the program, both from SS&C Technologies, ticker symbol SS, Nancy Charlie. And if you know this podcast, if you know our writings, you know we're big fans of SS&C Technologies. It's a company that plays in a space where I got my start in financial services. They're a leading financial technology player in investment operations, and they're building out their footprint in the front office as well, as we talked about in the earnings call most recently with the Q4 acquisition of Algorithmics. And joining the call, I had Scott Kurland, who is the global head of product marketing for SS&C Singularity. If you recall, we had Scott on the program last year. And we also had Kyle Fields, and Kyle is the VP of SS&C GlobeOp. Be sure to read the show notes. I've included a number of things. You can find Scott and Kyle's LinkedIn profile. I've included a URL to a white paper entitled Outsourcing in a Time of Crisis, and that was published this week by SS&C, so you'll have access to that. And then if you're interested in learning more about the company, I'd encourage you to check out TEK2day, our writings, as well as the podcast. As far as our publishings at TEK2day, look at the tags labeled SS&C, SS&C Technologies, SS&C, the ticker symbol, as well as I think we may have published an article or several articles that had the tag Singularity. SS&C Singularity, if you recall, is SS&C's modern architected investment operations platform that leverages proprietary technologies, including AI, machine learning, NLP, RPA, predictive analytics, and leverages these technologies to deliver a verticalized offering for asset managers, insurance companies around investment operations. SS&C has been around for 34 years, since 1986. So they have a ton of domain expertise in this vertical, and you combine that with the best technology platform in the space, and that marriage is pretty unique. So without further ado, here's my interview with Scott Kurland and Kyle Fields of SS&C. All right, so thanks everyone for joining. Today I have two special guests, folks that I've had the opportunity to spend some time with in the past from SS&C Technologies. We have Scott Kurland, who is the global product head for SS&C Singularity. And we have Kyle Fields, who's the VP of SS&C GlobeOp down in Evansville. And why don't I just kick it over to you guys? You could give the audience a brief intro about yourselves and the respective business lines.
Sure, John. This is Kyle. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on. And a little bit about myself. As you mentioned, Kyle Fields. I've been with SS&C for 10 years, CPA by training. Spent some time at PricewaterhouseCoopers as well as a pharmaceutical company before joining SS&C. And most of my time at SS&C has been on the fund services side of our business, specifically hedge funds and private equity funds. And over the last couple of years, I've transitioned to really helping out with Singularity and scaling up the product. And excited to be here with you today. Scott?
John, thanks again for having us. So Scott Kurland, I'm Managing Director and Global Head of Product Marketing for Singularity, which is SS&C's next generation AI-powered investment operations and accounting system. Been with the firm a little over 2 years, but spent most of my career, 20 plus years prior to that, as a Fintech entrepreneur, focusing on everything from order and execution, management technology, global routing for the asset management community, and then more recently, post-trade processing with some experience related to AI, specifically alpha generation technologies, predictive analytics, machine learning, and so forth. We've been applying that over the last couple of years here at SS&C with Singularity.
Well, thanks for joining the call. I'm thrilled to have you guys. So maybe before we get into sort of the subject matter questions that I had, I'm just curious as to how you guys are dealing with COVID personally. I think Bill Stone on the earnings call a couple of weeks ago talked about how the firm is dealing with working remotely. Old hat for you guys. You do it exceptionally well. But maybe just personally, Scott, being in the greater Boston area, and then Kyle in Evansville, Indiana, just kind of what you see on the ground personally in terms of the reopening as it relates to COVID.
Sure. Well, first off, I think, being native to the Boston area, I can say that with respect to, continued operations and working through SS&C, a lot of our applications, development tools, and infrastructure is web and mobile accessible. So I've had really no problem transitioning to a home office environment with the laptop and high speed bandwidth and phone service. So we've been doing a lot of collaboration through Zoom and Microsoft Project and a number of other tools, probably similar to other folks in the financial technology and investment space. So I think that's been pretty seamless, and we've been able to continue both operations and implementation opportunities. I'm seeing a lot of people in the greater Boston area, at least in the financial space, in similar situations, and they're also exploring everything from virtual conferences to continuing education opportunities and webinars where we can't meet in person. Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, I think similar with regards to, a lot of folks transition very well with regards to SS&C and other companies, I think, too, going into remote status. In Evansville, Indiana, we're in a little bit different situation with regards to the case count and just the demographics of our office and transportation and so forth. So we're in a slightly different situation than most cities, and we feel good about where we're at. We're going to look at this strategically and methodically as we look to scale back people into the offices. And we've got key personnel in so far, and we'll look to bring various other folks in a phased approach. We're looking at various teams where we're rotating each week, and then also being very mindful of folks that may be higher risk or have child needs and so forth. So we're continuing to monitor it every single day, but in the interim, we're hitting client deliverables, and we're doing what we need to do remote.
So for the benefit of the audience, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to do a web demo with Scott. He got me up to speed on Singularity, and I was particularly interested with regard to some of the integrations from the recent Algorithmics acquisition and the data sets that have been incorporated into Singularity. And we were talking about how COVID has presented some opportunities, whether it be new business opportunities with new clients or opportunities to perhaps do a bit of outsourcing work for existing clients. And we were going to drill down on that topic today. And so I guess sort of the first question I have is just sort of around the key operational challenges that you may have heard coming from clients back in March as people started to migrate to a work from home environment, and how SS&C offered expertise to maybe facilitate that effort on behalf of clients.
Yeah, I think, John, is a great question. So I think the first thing is I'm not sure there's any specific patterns per se with regards to large or small clients. I think all clients, prospective clients, have certainly been impacted and having to kind of do a self-evaluation of where we're at, where we're going, and where are the gaps and how do we fill them. And we love to be in a position to help fill those gaps. And I do think that there is a pattern that we're seeing similar to, the Bernie Madoff scandal, various years back with regards to a shift of, hey, are we really doing the right things internally? Can we look to an outside provider like an SS&C to assist us, as well as, whether it be from a SaaS perspective? So I think a pattern that we're starting to see and will continue is maybe a hosted licensed client becomes a SaaS client. And if a SaaS client needs some additional services like a reconciliation assistance or regulatory assistance, we can add those in addition to, providing software as a service. And then ultimately, too, we're seeing, a lot more interest in full outsourcing, and I think that we'll continue to see that similar to the hedge fund space did with the Madoff scandal.
And I think if I can add to that, to Kyle's comments, I think if you look at the financial services industry in general, and the impact that COVID-19 has had since March, a couple of trends have emerged. Right, you had folks that were operating a lot of internal infrastructure, so on-premise platforms and technology that maybe were not quite mobile and web accessible. There's challenges associated with accessing those platforms from a business continuity perspective. In addition to that, you've obviously seen extreme market volatility, transaction volume spikes, a lot of uncertainty with respect to the trajectory of assets, both public and private. So when you look at whether it's listed securities, mortgage-backed instruments with spread changes due to the Treasury activities that are going on, lending or funding transactions, or having tighter margin requirements or collateral calls. So for investment managers, like a number of those that we service today, both through technology and outsourcing, you see that the complexity of their portfolio is then exacerbated by the fact that they have additional processing requirements and challenges. So we've seen that across the industry, and I think, as Kyle had mentioned, that's where opportunity to employ, let's call it belt and suspenders, where you have the technology you need, you have your own in-house expertise, but then you can tap into SS&C staff, domain expertise, global infrastructure, and so forth, where you need to in times of crisis. More clients, I think, are open to and have an appetite to explore that further, given what they're going through right now.
And what was sort of the initial outreach? How did clients reach out to you? Was there sort of a certain message that you heard from multiple clients where they were feeling a particular pain point, and any sort of theme to that end?
Yeah, I think with regards to communication, I think there has been various clients and prospects reach out to us and look to us for possible solutions, whether that be outsourcing or SaaS or some form of a combination. Co-sourcing is what we call it. There's also just a lot of dialogue, John, with regards to our clients and collaboration, with existing client base, what's working, what's not working, and how can we add additional services or maybe stand up more people or more tech for them. So it's a little bit of both, them reaching out to us reaching out to them, and trying to, again, identify those gaps and quickly put a solution in place to meet their needs.
And just to add one more point to it, Kyle, some of those inbound inquiries, a lot of the theme around that has been access to information and transparency, right? So in a very volatile, uncertain market, you want to be able to make timely decisions, smart decisions off of accurate information. So whether it's more detailed reporting requests, online access to their investment data information, or key processing activities, we've been able to help in a number of capacities there.
And then, I'm just curious. One of the things I saw frankly from you guys, I had a conversation with some folks on the other side around PPP. So any new offerings that came out of this crisis that maybe, did not exist several months ago? Scott, I think we touched on maybe the sort of the immediate response, the emergency help us now offering that we chatted about briefly on our demo call a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, Kyle, maybe you want to hit that one since it's been more from the servicing side.
Yeah, in addition to the kind of emergency, hey, help us with regards to standing up some people or some tech, we also, John, to your point, SS&C has a lot of great people and products, and we had an opportunity to assist our banks and the bank's clients on the payroll protection program. So we were able to leverage some natural language processing to automate the review of the applications for those loans, and so looking at ways to where, again, we have existing products and services, but also trying to evolve those products and services for various clients, both banks, insurance companies, asset managers, REITs, and so forth.
Are there any examples that you want to talk about? And I don't know that you want to give out client names per se, but maybe an example as to how you helped an asset manager versus a REIT versus an insurance carrier, over these past few weeks.
Sure. Yeah. I think on the last, we'll call it 6 months, some trying times for various clients, and one that comes to mind is a client that we signed in Q4, and we're going through the implementation, and I think a validation to our outsourcing team and services. We were able to meet a very big milestone for them as of 3/31. So they signed late December with a big mandate as of Q3 or Q1, March 31st, and we were able to pull off a purchase gap accounting solution for them. Again, outsourcing, virtually all remote for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and we were able to hit that deliverable for them, and we continue to hit deliverables every day as we remain remote.
And maybe just a couple other two other quick examples, John, that I could share. One is We have some other Singularity-based clients where, as you mentioned earlier, risk and risk mitigation was sort of paramount. So we were able to rapidly in Q1 integrate the Algorithmics product suite with Singularity and extend that out through the web and mobile application to allow clients to effectively model various risk scenarios, run things like interest rate or index shocks or value at risk sensitivity analysis against different types of scenarios off of their real-time investment book of record. So that's been helpful as we try to sort of navigate the uncertainty and the volatility that's in the market today. And then another perhaps example is we rolled out also in Q1 new functionality for mortgage REITs around proactive collateral management and collateral margin management that allows them to kind of view in real time where they stand with their collateral against things like repo or reverse repo funding transactions to determine if they have to re-optimize their collateral, if the banks may be calling some of that collateral in and they have to liquidate some of those asset-backed securities in order to maintain appropriate collateral inventory and margin requirements. And that's helped them navigate their investment portfolio with everything that's going on in the real assets and listed REIT space.
So I had a question for you guys, and we sort of touched on it, but I want to revisit it anyway because I want to impress upon the audience the importance of some of these elements. So when I think about SS&C, since its founding in 1986, growing organically, growing through acquisitions, but has always remained focused around sort of core investment operations, extending now, of course, into the front office, but with a focus around portfolio accounting. So a long-winded way of saying deep vertical domain expertise, coupled with what you're doing, for example, Scott, on the Singularity side with advanced technologies such as broadly defined artificial intelligence that are really the underpinnings for Singularity. So you're marrying advanced technologies with deep domain expertise, and I think it makes SS&C exceptionally well positioned to deliver on some of the challenges that folks are seeing today in their business around operational complexity, regulation, cybersecurity. So maybe you could just sort of touch on those things. I just want to impress upon people the importance of those elements.
Yeah, I think if you look at today's world, we operate in a real-time world, right? So traditionally, accounting was not a real-time process. It was a batch-based process that's done after general portfolio investment activities, operational maintenance is done, and so forth. And so really our objective over the last few years between both the outsourcing business, applying our domain expertise, and of course, next generation technology has been trying to bring accounting into the real-time space, like everything else that's done for the most part in the investment life cycle. So with Singularity, we've attempted to do that across a very broad range of assets so that you can have a true, accurate and timely investment and accounting book of record, and really applying innovative technologies in the AI space, whether that be machine learning for matching and reconciliation, whether it be intelligent process or robotic process automation to try to take it a step further and research and resolve breaks as soon as they're identified, predictive analytics related to analysis of financial reporting or anomaly detection, and then, as Kyle alluded to earlier, natural language processing to get through some of the alternative products like bank loans and so forth that have non-standardized, unstructured data or documents that need to be processed in a much more timely manner. To the extent that you can combine automation, error checking, and real-time processing together, that allows you to arrive at as close to an accurate real-time accounting view of the world as possible in the investment portfolio. Once you have that, there's a lot of really interesting things you can do that around risk management, performance management, and ultimately decision support at the investment, the portfolio investment, level.
And then maybe Kyle, you could talk about think it'd be interesting for the audience from an outsourcing standpoint. What did SS&C do for clients to sort of ensure business continuity in this time of crisis, that they wouldn't skip a beat?
Sure. Yeah. So I think we did a lot of things, and we had a lot of boxes checked, leading up to this pandemic. And our CTO, Anthony Caefa, and our IT department did an incredible job of really prepping us leading up to this and continuing to help us deliver for our clients on the outsourcing side. but 99% of SS&C is remote, and we continue to be remote as we look to bring people back. And just because we're remote doesn't mean that we're not hitting deliverables. We're hitting deliverables. In addition to that, having technology, owning that technology, and having cloud-based technology like Singularity gives a ton of transparency to our clients. Again, whether they're SaaS clients or outsourcing clients, they can log in wherever they're at, when they want to log in, how they want to log in, and various devices. So they got that remote access. We also, with regards to the flexibility for our clients, in addition to your standard processing of transactions, reconciliations, and reporting, we've given our clients that risk analytics, real-time data access, and on-demand reporting. So allowing our clients to have access to the information that we provide internally and run internally, I think is powerful for our clients. And having a global footprint, I think, also helps. Right, we stretch the globe. We have a follow the sun approach, and so allowing clients to be serviced from various locations to hit various needs and demands that they have. And we also have seen an uptick in hey, instead of monthly, can we look at daily reporting? And the simple answer to that is yes. We can move from a monthly reporting to a daily reporting because of all the volatilities and ebbs and flows in the market. They want to see things on a more real-time basis. So giving that to them intraday or at the end of the day versus the end of the month, I think is certainly something that we've been able to assist our clients with. And lastly, what I would say is, and Scott mentioned it a little bit, is the risk analytics, right? The integration of algorithmics, that acquisition that occurred back in Q4 of last year has been very powerful, and we're very excited about where we can take that for our clients.
And so now that we've had several months of history going through this COVID experience, just sort of wondering if there are words of wisdom, any advice you'd give, whether it be a brand new asset manager or somebody that's been around and has seen. Not that we've seen anything that's looked like COVID in the past, but we've seen 9/11 and things like this. Just kind of words of advice to the client base and prospective clients.
Well, certainly, I'll start. I think this has been, for better or worse, an opportunity to really reflect on your business model as a client, right? Your operating model as a client. Where are your weaknesses? How is your business continuity plan come into play, even if you weren't expecting to trigger it? And, how do your costs line up with the market volatility, the impact on your investment portfolio, the uncertainty that you may be going through, and business disruption or interruption? So, the words of advice would be, I think, use that opportunity to take a close look at your business operating model. And if there's an opportunity to partner with a outsourcing provider, a co-sourcing provider, or even explore the concept of outsourcing on demand, which is maybe you operate your platform on business as usual, but you tap into an outsourcing or co-sourcing partner in times of volatility or crisis, or a new acquisition you might make that requires additional hands-on expertise and capabilities and scalability. And you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. And I think with modern technology, like we're supplying with Singularity, that ability to pivot or shift responsibilities or co-collaborate through the same operating infrastructure is feasible, where maybe it wasn't 5 or 10 years ago. Kyle, do you want to add some color as well?
Yeah, I think just to add a little bit to what Scott said, I think there's definitely a self-evaluation, what's working, what's not working, that everyone should be doing from a gap analysis perspective, looking at providers that can assist both from a SaaS, as well as outsourcing, given the fact that you need that flexibility. And my guess is this isn't the last virus we're going to see or the last pandemic, unfortunately. So being able to kind of battle-proof the systems, your team, and so forth. And again, I think back to the Bernie Madoff scandal in 08, 09. I do think that there's going to be a shift in outsourcing, for an uptick with regards to what are we doing now that we can maybe leverage a provider that's been doing it for in our case, since 1986, so 34 years and going, maybe with leveraging some additional domain experience and a technology provider that's well positioned.
And then maybe just to sort of wrap up, and Scott, this may be more a question for you, but Kyle, feel free to comment. So when I think about SS&C, I think about the deep domain expertise in cutting edge technology, in the marriage of the two, and that makes for a powerful combination. And so, there are a number of vendors that offer RPA solutions, and they typically sell to multiple industry verticals. It's more of a horizontal offering, if you will. Similarly with OCR, predictive analytics, so on and so forth. But the fact that SS&C has leveraged all of these advanced technologies into a focused offering around investment operations, to me, that verticalization, if you will, of those technologies makes it especially powerful. So maybe, Scott, if you just want to touch on from a kind of a technology standpoint, some of those elements and how they provide you an ability to service the client at a high level.
Yeah, I think. Thanks, John. I think that you're spot on. It's the marriage of having the domain expertise to know where to apply the various innovative technologies, and then having the technology infrastructure and ongoing investment that we've been making and continue to make in products like Singularity to actually then put them to use and see the benefits. So the benefits being realized cost efficiencies in terms of time. So processing time in terms of accuracy and transparency, real-time information and data access, and then just in terms of people, just automation allows for more exceptions-based management and allows the middle office or back office staff to focus on more high value-added functions as it may relate to analytical reporting or investment decision-making. So, we took the tact of saying, how can we take a lot of these AI-driven technologies and embed them right from the get-go into a modern technology stack with Singularity so they weren't bolt-ons, and then developed really a blueprint to say, let's look at each of the key areas in the middle and back office investment lifecycle when it comes to operations and accounting and figure out which of these technologies can be applied in certain areas for the most bang for the buck. So, I think as I alluded to before, machine learning, really good at identifying patterns. So things like matching and reconciliation tolerances and learning that dynamically and adapting it as opposed to it being a hard-coded rule. RPA, as you mentioned, there's a lot of tools using RPA or providers using RPA in different capacities. We're really looking at it in terms of automating things like posting of accounting entries in real time to the investment general ledger. Or for remediating and researching breaks in matching and reconciliation processes. Natural language processing, anything document related, so the combination of OCR and NLP for different types of alternative product events, as well as everything from OTC transaction confirms. There's a lot of different applications there. And then the predictive analytics side is really looking at where can you streamline everything from manual data entry. So what have I done in the past? What am I holding? And just like when you start typing a search in Google and it finishes your sentence for you, the same idea with predictive entry and predictive analytics. And then also being able to use, I say the combination of machine learning and predictive analytics. One of the things we're most excited about is using that to project forward risk or forward-looking risk scenarios, and then being able to determine how would your portfolio fare if this event happens a week, a month in the future. And by the way, we think based on these variables that there's an 85% probability this type of event will happen, right? So giving that guidance and foresight to from the middle office all the way up to the front office, I think is going to be an extremely powerful thing to come. So we're quite excited about all of those things. And they make our ability to do our job as an outsourcing provider or a co-sourcing provider more efficient, and for clients that license the technology on a SaaS basis, they can make their own internal staff more efficient as well.
Kyle, anything from your end?
I think the only thing I would add would be the fact that we continue to look at ways to automate, right? Where are the inefficiencies in the process, and how can we put technology in the place of maybe manual inputting, reviewing, or processing, or all the above. So just doing things smarter and looking at ways to leverage artificial intelligence as much as possible.
That's great stuff. Scott, Kyle, thanks very much for joining the Tech Today podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate it as always.
Thank you, John.